Hello everyone, it's History Behind the Warrior, and welcome back to yet another Tekken 8 History of episode this week. With me having covered Jin Kazama, I thought that we could conclude our coverage of the Kazama line by talking about his mother and ever-elusive host of the mysterious unknown, Jun Kazama, or Jun, depending on how you wish to enunciate it. Now, whilst Jun's appearances have been few and far between, her overall impact on the larger narrative simply cannot be understated, as she is the mother of Jin Kazama and the former lover of Kazuya Mishima, having since had numerous name drops and cameos ever since her disappearance in Tekken 3. But to put a little spin on the typical formula of what you've seen before, today I will be touching on her non-canon counterpart, Unknown, as it gives us a more well-rounded retrospective and picture of this character. Because let's face it, most of you have only ever been introduced to this character through the Tekken 8 beta or Tekken Tag 2. But before we do begin, as always, if you're liking these episodes and wish to see more, please don't forget to subscribe, as well as tick that bell to stay up to date with everything we do here. So with that said, let's just jump right into things. Now, Jun herself descends from the very ancient Kazama line of Japan. Whilst not much is known of their origins or ancestry, we do know that the line itself is intertwined with that of mysticism, having an uncanny tether to Mother Nature and its creatures. On top of this, they have the ability to nurture and suppress the devil gene itself. Yet growing up, Jun was largely oblivious to that of her own heritage, only subconsciously tapping into it when she befriended animals. It was only until she started growing up where she began to use it as well as her psychic abilities. Something that really benefited in her line of work, as she lived to preserve the life of animals. Her kind spirit was also tempered by her training in Kazama-style karate, something passed down from generation to generation that carried their teachings and beliefs. As Jun came of age, her abilities only grew stronger, but sadly, as they did, Jun would be forced to move away from Yakushima and relocate to Tokyo for work. The busy city life caused a huge disconnect from her home, thus making it very hard to maintain her connection with the spirits. One day, however, her deceased father would appear before her, haunting her with an omen that her abilities would be key in halting the most dangerous threat to the world, Kazuya Mishima, the new head of the Mishima Zaibotsu, who was waging a war throughout the lands, pursuing international conquest. It was through her father that she learned he possessed the devil gene, and that should she interfere, she could very well not only suppress it, but save the world by doing so. With Kazuya already practicing animal experimentation, she had more than enough reason to hunt him down during the second King of Iron Fist tournament. And in a very strange twist of events, when the two encountered each other, a relationship would blossom between them. The details are best described as scarce at best, but she would temper his devil gene, and later even go on to conceive a child with him. But this all does wind up in tragedy, as Kazuya was simply too far gone, brushing Jun aside shortly following this. It is unknown of how far she got in the tournament, or even if she continued to participate, but by the end of Tekken 2, Jun would return back to Yakushima and give birth to Jin. Yet, there was no time for peace, as the aftermath of Tekken 2 and the supposed death of Kazuya meant that the devil gene would attempt to seek out a new host, attempting to inflict control over the young Kazama. Fortunately, Jun is able to fend off the parasite, as the Kazama lineage continues to remain strong. Now, being a single mother was no easy task for Jun, but she would help mold Jin into a better man than his father, being no fool that the devil gene did run through his blood. Thus, because of this, his father's identity would be kept a secret, as well as the rest of the Mishima line. Not too much is known of their home life, honestly, but she did raise and teach him their Kazama style of karate, allowing him to learn self-discipline at a very young age. This period isn't too heavily explored, but we do know they were extremely close. In the coming days, this would all fall to ruin, as the Mishima Zaibutsu had unknowingly unleashed an ancient evil on the world. Ogre, a dangerous god of fighting that seeked bloodshed in combat as he hunted for fighters. Having sensed this presence, and knowing that he would inevitably come to their home, Jun would reveal to him his father's bloodline, and that, should anything become of her, to seek out his grandfather Heihachi for guidance and asylum. Naturally, this revelation only sparks more questions out of Jin, but before he can get answers, the house would be attacked by Ogre, tearing it apart as he lunged at Jun. The outcome of this fight is very vague to say the least, but in its aftermath, Jun would mysteriously disappear, and Ogre would continue to thrive, leading to Jin seeking out Heihachi Mishima. From this point onwards, Jun is heavily absent from the series, being spiritually succeeded by another member of the Kazama line, Asuka. It's only up until Tekken 8 where she finally makes a mainline canon appearance. 28 years later, mind you. But with the brief glimpses we've had of her in the trailers, she looks to be in what can only be described as a dream state. There's currently little to no information that confirms whether or not she's dead or alive, or exists in a limbo of sorts. It's currently left up to interpretation, as even its director, Harada, has always alluded to the status of the character. Yet he has always noted that there was more going on with her than what we've understood. So with all of that accounted for, this takes us onto her darker half, Unknown. Now, Unknown is an entity that has been strictly reserved for the tag games, and those games in particular are considered to be non-canon, running parallel to that of the mainline series, whilst simultaneously diverting off in its own narrative direction. Thus, they are considered to be their own thing. In this series, Jun does also make an appearance as herself. Little reason is explained as to why or how she returned, but this version of the character is tainted by an evil, malevolent spirit, one that takes shape in the very first tag game as a werewolf. The exact nature of the spirit itself is largely kept a mystery, as it's never branded under beast, demon, or even devil. Thus, it can be believed to be something very different to the franchise. Its most notable trait that is rather similar is that the unknown Jun is actually branded with the Kazama devil symbol, which is something that happens to Jin in Tekken 3, maybe being a sign that they've been branded by a great evil. It is also very possible that the spirit itself could be devil in nature, but it kind of does contradict what we've come to know of the devil gene, where it is mostly genetic. Yet, this main fact tied to the older ideas of the canon, where the devil gene itself is more spiritual in nature, as we have seen with Jin's birth. It could very well be possible that Unknown may actually be a different devil that seeks to influence others in a very different shape, where the wolf takes a physical form, whereas in Tag 2, where the devil gene is more established, the wolf form is gone. The mystery surrounding Unknown has always been very interesting, and it was at one point going to be explored in its own comic book line, Tekken Forever. Unfortunately, for one reason or another, that line was cancelled and discontinued, later being branded as non-canon. Thus, we will never actually know what became of Jun to enter this state. But her ties to the spirit realm and nature itself makes it very easy to believe that one of the astral animals she was protecting was a snake in disguise. The tag games themselves don't really have an overarching narrative, so in terms of story, not too much is to be said. Only that in and out of the unknown form, Jun is still beneath the surface, fighting for her son's protection, whether that be from Ogre or even himself. With that said, this has been it for the history of Jun Kazama. a very prolific, yet elusive figure in the franchise. And it's understandable to see why. She's played such a significant role from being such a minor character in the grand calculus of Tekken. Thus, I'm intrigued to know of her fate in Tekken 8, as well as what became of her after her clash with Ogre. Is she alive? Is she dead? Is she spiritually bound to an afterlife or limbo? Please do comments down below, as I'd love to hear your suggestions. And I must say, I am thrilled to see her return with some narrative importance here, especially with us edging closer to the climax of Kazuya vs Jin, a battle that will conclude the Mishima saga. But for now everyone, that has been it for me. So as always, stay strong, stay well, and keep on fighting. Take care everyone, I'll catch you all soon.